Hello, welcome to this short online presentation. I'm Nicholas Henderson and I'm an accredited speaker. I'm available online or in person for talks and lectures. I speak on a wide variety of subjects and I'm available through any groups, large or small. At the end of the presentation you'll find a short list of some of my talks and ways in which to get in touch with me. Please do feel free to do so. Thank you. Anne of Cleves, Henry VIII's and England's half-forgotten queen, born in Dusseldorf, Duchy of Berg in the Holy Roman Empire, 1515. Portrait here by Hans Holbein, the court painter, which can be found now in the Louvre in Paris. Anne's fate was sealed by Henry's right-hand man, Thomas Cromwell. In order to protect the kingdom from the potential ravages of the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V and the power of Spain and France, Cromwell was seeking now a dynastic alliance with the northern, newly emerging Protestant states. Amongst the potential brides for Henry, his eye fell upon Christina of Denmark, the stunning Christina of Denmark, here painted by Holbein in Widow's Weeds. She's already a widow, aged only 16. Bottom right-hand side when she's Duchess Consort of Upper Lorraine. Despite her youth, she's very wise, because she said, I would gladly marry Henry if I had but 2 necks. His reputation had preceded him. But in due course, Holbein painted his famous painting of Anne, and incidentally, a painting of himself, which I thought you might like to see there. Anne's political strength lay in the fact that she was the daughter of John III, the Peaceful, Count of Mark. There he is on the left-hand side, being presented to the Virgin and Child. And Anne's brother William, Duke of Cleves Berg, who succeeded him, was on the ducal throne when Anne's arrangement for marriage was concluded. Anne was destined to make a long and arduous journey over to England, and she did, and arrived in 1540 in Rochester. She was supposed to meet Henry in London, but Henry, ever the impatient one, dressed up as a troubadour of all things and went with his friends and burst into the room in Rochester where Anne was watching for sport bull baiting out of a window. He went up to her and embraced her. She was shocked at this, not recognizing the corpulent, overweight, balding man who had approached her, and she turned away. Henry, much slighted, stomped out, saying, "She has the face of a Flanders mare, and later, she is nothing so fair as hath been reported." He ordered Cromwell to find a way out of the marriage, but this was impossible. It would endanger the dynastic alliances which were to take place. And so on the 6th of January 1540, the site of the Palace of Placentia, Henry's favourite palace, now the site of the Royal Naval Colleges in Greenwich, the marriage took place. It was conducted by Thomas Cranmer, Archbishop of Canterbury. Henry made brilliant appointments of men from a lowly background, Thomas Cromwell being one of them, and Thomas Cranmer being another. Thomas Cranmer will go on later on to give us the Book of Common Prayer. But after a wedding comes the most terrifying part, the wedding night, something which brought together both aristocrats and peasantry in a similar trial. Top left-hand side there we have a woodcut of the bishop asperging the bed, blessing it with holy water on the wedding night. Bottom right-hand side we have a Bruegel painting, where the only difference is it's the parish priest asperging the bed. In both cases, an integral part of the wedding night seems to be the Poe, which in one case is under the bed and the other case is being brought in by the bride. Whether the Poe was used or not on Henry's and Anne's wedding night was debatable. But the following morning, Cromwell asked Henry how he got on. His reply was, and these are his very words, "I liked her before not well, but now I like her much worse." He seemed to be unable to consummate the marriage. Anne seemed to be unaware. Asked by her ladies-in-waiting a month or so later what happened during the nights, she said, "When he comes to bed, he kisseth me and says, 'Good night, darling,' and in the morning he gets up, kisseth me, and says, 'Farewell, darling.' Is that not sufficient?" Well, obviously it wasn't sufficient, and by June of that year, Henry had decided to annul the marriage. And Anne was offered a very generous settlement. She was in a dangerous position at this time, considering what had happened to the previous wives. But she became wise on the spot, asking how many male servants would she have in order to fulfill her part of the contract. This is vital for status. And she was told 240. 240 male servants, never mind the female servants. A high, large entourage indeed, and much property, including, ironically, Hever Castle, once the home of the Boleyns and now Anne of Cleves. And then numerous houses and manors. Here's Anne of Cleves' house in Lewes in East Sussex, one of many. Anne settled rapidly well into her new life as a single lady of property in the countryside, but coming frequently into the court to play cards with Henry. Here's the Queen of Hearts, not the Diana Princess of Wales, but the Queen of Hearts is supposedly modelled on the lady on the left. That's Elizabeth of York. She is the mother of Henry VIII, the original Queen of Hearts. And again, surprisingly, Anne got on very well with wife number 5, Catherine Howard, who had been one of her ladies-in-waiting. We have there the only authentic portrait of her, side profile, in the east window of King's College Chapel, Cambridge, in the stained glass, where she is in the role of the Queen of Sheba, presenting gifts to King Solomon, who is in fact King Henry, top left-hand side. Well, in due course, Catherine Howard was to lose her head, as also was Thomas Cromwell, something which Henry later much regretted. But perhaps Cromwell had his revenge, because traced through his sister's line, Oliver Cromwell, in the next century, would be responsible for the execution of Charles I. "Paint me, warts and all," said Oliver Cromwell. When we come to wife number 6, Anne now was a confident woman. She was able to say publicly, "I cannot see what Catherine Parr sees in Henry. He is so fat that you could get 3 large men inside his doublet." Anne's shrewdness went on as she outlived the other wives and went into the reign of Mary, Henry's daughter, later to be known as Bloody Mary. This is her wedding day, 1554, when she marries Philip of Spain. In those days, a man's legs were considered his virtue, and Mary considered that Philip had a fine pair of legs. Unfortunately, this seems to have been lost on Hans Eworth, the artist, who, in the school of L.S. Lowry, has made Philip more like a matchstick man. But Anne, at the time of this deeply unpopular marriage, shrewdly wrote to Mary to congratulate her, and as a result was rewarded with a new accommodation. Chelsea Old Manor House, ironically Catherine Parr's old house. This is important for Anne because although she had had a generous, very generous financial settlement, inflation and the ravages of inflation had reduced her circumstances considerably. Now, Anne was not a crowned queen, but because she had inveigled favour with Mary, she was given a crowned queen's funeral and a burial in Westminster Abbey. And there, on the left-hand side, you can see her tomb. It looks for all the world like a small side altar. Underneath is her signature, which reads Anna, the daughter of Cleves. At the bottom right-hand side, the inscription, Anne of Cleves, Queen of England, born 1515, died 1557, was only added in the 1970s. So she was, for centuries, the half-forgotten queen. Finally, we have one other portrait of her, which is in St. John's College, Oxford. And it's been x-rayed, and indeed, yes, the artist has shortened her nose. She had a long nose. Whether that was what put Henry off her, we don't know. But from my own point of view, I think she would have made an excellent queen for Henry. She was a lovely person, and I have fallen in love with her. Unfortunately, I'm 459 years too late. So I'll leave you, finally, with a picture of the king who's caused all the trouble in the first place.